Alexandria exists to provide life-enriching experiences in nature to teenagers from under-resourced families and underserved communities in Alexandria. We're the only organization in the city doing that work, and I think maybe in all of Northern Virginia as well. Really the need is, as I'm sure you know, there's a real mental health crisis among teenagers these days. There's studies out that show that Gen Z is the loneliest generation, like lonelier than millennials and Gen X. And even here in Alexandria, we've had some problems of school violence. And even for the kids who aren't involved in that violence, it just amps up the stress and anxiety of going to school, and kind of being a teenager, in addition to pressures of social media and all the other pressures that just come along with being a teenager. You've got social media pressures, school stress, and other things. And we also know that most people sort of get intuitively that being out in nature has a calming effect and helps our mental health. There also are a ton of studies that show that time in nature reduces anxiety, reduces stress, and even improves interpersonal skills. Our students have reported to us, that without us, they would generally, the time that they spend with us, they would generally spend inside if they weren't with us. And a lot of these families, they face barriers to getting outside. One is transportation. Most of our families do not own cars, and a lot of green spaces are simply not accessible by public transportation. There's a certain cost. Some parks are free, and so you can go for a walk in a park, but some parks actually have entry fees. If you want to go camping, you have to pay camping fees. And if you want to go kayaking or rock climbing, there's the rental of gear, and that's all those costs are sort of beyond the reach of our families. And then the last barrier is really one of expertise. Also, a lot of our kids are kids of color and come from families and communities that have historically been excluded from green spaces. And then as a result, there aren't people in their family who know how to rock climb or who know how to paddle or who have experience camping. And so we address all of those things. Our programs are all entirely free. We provide door-to-door transportation, and we provide the expertise that kids need to really to do certain activities outside that they otherwise wouldn't be able to do. And we're trying to cultivate those skills among our kids so that they can pass them on to their siblings and to others in their community. So that's kind of the work we're doing. We pursue that mission through our after school program, which the Community Foundation has really generously funded. And through that, we really try and create emotionally and physically safe spaces for kids in the outdoors. And so we get kids outside for 90 minutes after school once a week, and we do that throughout the school year with different groups of kids, sort of in series of 6 or 7 or 8 weeks at a time. And in total, probably 70% of our kids are either immigrants themselves or the children of immigrants. And so we bring them all together and then put them in a place where a lot of them haven't been before, out in the woods or on a river on a rock face. And that enables kids to sort of drop some of their barriers. And we've seen friendships blossom across those differences. And it's a really beautiful thing. And it's something we work hard to cultivate, whether it's after school on the weekends in the summertime, and some of our smaller group programs also. Community is very much at the heart of what we do. So a number of our students, in after school, we introduce kids to paddling. And then on the weekend, we might take them on a little bit longer paddling trip. And for a lot of kids, that's enough. And then some kids are like, I really enjoyed that. I want to do more. And so we created, based on that feedback, we created a paddling cohort that takes kids paddling every 2 weeks. It's a small group of students. And not only have they become friends with each other, and those kids are from all different backgrounds, but they've become really good friends with the kayaking instructors, and then even the broader DMV kayaking community, which is a relatively tight-knit community, that involves hundreds of people, adults, men and women, teenagers who love to kayak on the Potomac River. And our kids are now part of that community. And it's almost like it's the community separate from Wilderness Kids, but they have sort of become part of that through their participation with us. And it's a really beautiful thing to see. So I think the big opportunity is that there's a lot of demand. Like we have both lots of kids who want to join us, and then also a lot of parents and teachers and school counselors who want us to bring programs to them. We've had a really strong middle school after school program for 4 years now. We're only 4 years old. And so for 4 years, we've had a great middle school after school program at Francis Hammond Middle School, and also at Jefferson Houston Middle School. And so we're going to continue to run that middle school program. And this year, again, thanks to your funding, we're planning sort of our biggest middle school program yet. We think we'll have 9 separate series of after school sessions. So like 3 in the fall, 3 in the winter, and 3 in the spring. Whereas I think in the past, the most we've done is 7. And then we also launched in February a high school adventure club, which was, again, it was something that the kids asked for. So as our, again, we've been around 4 years. We started with 6th and 7th graders. So just recently, we've started to work with high school kids. And those kids have said, I want to stay involved. I loved this when I was in 8th grade. How do I stay involved? And we talked about creating a club. And so now there is a student-run club with, a president and a vice president and a treasurer. And it gives kids an opportunity to learn leadership skills and planning skills and research and budgeting as they plan their own outings with support from our staff, of course. And so we have a lot of students involved in that high school club. So I think a lot of our growth and the opportunity for growth in the next couple of years is at the high school level, because we've got this really strong foundation in middle school. And so we have partners sort of coming out of the woodwork in high school. There are a number of other great organizations in Alexandria that exist at the high school and who now know about us and want to work with us. So really looking forward to a great high school program. For years, we've been telling our middle school students, one day you can work for Wilderness Kids, And so I just had a student reach out the other day and say, hey, you told me I could work for Wilderness Kids, can I? And he's going into 11th grade. And so we have hired him to start working for us in the fall as an intern, working with our middle school students. And so it's a little bit of a pilot, but then we want to turn that into a full-blown internship program where we might have half a dozen or 8 or even 10 high school students working with us to mentor our younger students in the outdoors. And we think that's a real opportunity for growth. And, again, building community. We have noticed that some parents, particularly in the summertime here, are a little bit more concerned about sending their kids away overnight with us. So while our day programs are going great in terms of enrollment, and even our overnight programs are generally doing well, especially with students who have been with us a long time, we're finding parents a little bit more reluctant to, send their kids away for 72 hours, just because it's a little bit of a scary world right now. We increased our in the summertime, we normally run just overnight programming. And this year we ran a whole week of just day programming. And as well as a couple like this, we called it Adventure Day Camp. And each day we'd pick kids up in the morning and bring them home at the end of the day. And so that was very well enrolled and kids had a great time. So that's one challenge. Funding is always a challenge, but we've had great support this past year. I wouldn't be an executive director if I were not worried about funding. That's just part of my job. So, but each year we have diversified our funding and grown our funding, and so that feels good. That is something we do pretty much every day. I mean, most of our students have not done, other than going for a hike, which isn't so different from just walking, right? Or maybe bike riding. Our students haven't done any of the things that we do with them. So on our ski trips, it is everyone's first time skiing. On our paddling trips, it's everyone's first time in a kayak. On our rock climbing trips, maybe a couple kids have done it in PE at school. But generally kids have not done that. And on camping trips, it's always our students' first time camping. And obviously then over time, we get veterans who are in 9th grade and have been camping with us 6 times and they can help the younger students. But so we practice something called challenge by choice, which is we try to meet students where they are. We require participation but then the level at which they participate is really up to them. And so rock climbing is sort of the easiest example. We might take a group of kids, a dozen kids rock climbing up at Carter Rock in Maryland. And some kids put on their harness and put on their helmet and skedaddle right up the rock face, and they're 30 feet in the air, and they look down and they're fearless and they pop back down, and they'll do that 10 times in a day. For other kids, they might climb 6 feet up the wall, 10 feet up the wall, and then say, that's enough for me, I'm going to come back down. And for other kids, they say, I'm not doing that, flat out, I am not doing that. And we say, okay, well, here's what we'd like you to do is can you put on the helmet and put on the harness and watch and listen? And, and maybe you can stand with the instructor as that person gives advice and help to the person on the wall. And if that's as far as the student gets that day, that's fine, but we've also often seen kids who do that, after 45 minutes, they're like, I'll try it, and we've even seen those kids make it to the top of the wall. I get choked up when I talk about this stuff because it's just a really beautiful thing. It's a really beautiful thing to see kids get out of their comfort zone to do things that they didn't imagine they could do. This stuff, like, in the end, like, who cares if a kid can rock climb or not? Like, it's not important, right? We can live happy lives without rock climbing. But the idea is, if we learn to rock climb and think we can't rock climb, and then we learn to rock climb, it also is like, well, maybe we think we can't go to college, but then we can, or we can't get that job, and then we can. So the big thing that we've seen really is kids, being okay with putting their phone down and interacting with their peers face to face rather than text to text or Snapchat to Snapchat or whatever. And then also feeling comfortable out in the woods and finding a little bit of calm and peace out in the woods. But we want kids to understand that they're welcome, like, not just at the shopping mall or at the strip mall or at the high school, but that they're welcome in the park, and they're welcome along the river, and the places that a lot of our kids and the communities that our kids come from have been historically excluded from, that those are their places as well. That we have a list of values, and our very first one is that nature is home. And we want kids to feel that, yeah, when they're out in the woods, that is part of their community, that is part of their home, and they should feel right at home there.